Tiptoe through the window, by the window, that's where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me.
Well, you going to take a seat?
Do you want me to?
Quite frankly, my dear, I am consumed with indifference, but I believe it is the accepted protocol for this situation.
This is a bad idea.
Don't expect any argument from this quarter, Miss Prentice.
Then why did you agree to this meeting, Professor?
Not Professor anymore, Miss Prentice, or had you forgotten?
Sorry, force of habit.
The chains of habit, too small to be felt until they are too strong to be broken.
So, what should I call you then, assuming that we intend to continue this exercise?
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. How about Iago, or Angelo, or Caliban, perhaps?
Or Mr. Jameson?
Oh, well, if you're going to be that literal, you may as well call me Richard.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that level of familiarity right now.
And upon familiarity will grow more content. I doubt that would be possible, given our situation. Wouldn't you agree, Miranda?
Don't call me that, you know my name is Alice.
You never used to mind. As I recall, you quite liked the affectation.
That was before.
And what's past his prologue, eh, Alice?
You still haven't answered my question, Professor.
As I recall, my dear Miss Prentice, there were quite a number of questions that I neglected to answer during our acquaintance, principally due to their mind-numbing inanity. You'll have to be a little more specific, my dear.
Why did you agree to this meeting?
You think that I had some choice in the matter. You forget, my dear, that I am here at Her Majesty's pleasure, and that it pleases Her Majesty to have me meet with you as part of the rehabilitative process. Such an interesting premise. Perpetrator and victim brought together in a safe and controlled environment to talk through what happened and to confront one's fears and the other's guilt, and to begin to heal the psychological wounds that would no doubt confound them throughout perpetuity. Of course, for the whole premise to be valid, both participants would have to be willing to admit who is the perpetrator and who is the victim.
I would have said that was quite obvious.
Aye, there's the rub. Personally, I fail to see the advantage of such an encounter, beyond the possibility of a conversation marginally improved upon that of the excremental diatribe of the prison yard. Remember, my dear Miss Prentice, I was once a highly regarded academic who was trod on the primrose path of dalliance with the intellectual elite. Now, done to death by slanderous tongue lie I, desperate for discourse with a learned mind.
Oh, I'm a learned mind now, am I? I'm honoured.
My dear, compared with my current associates, even a mind such as yours is an improvement.
Touche, Professor.
The question that I wish to ask you, however, is what do you hope to gain from this encounter?
Closure.
Oh, dear. I always said your predilection for the pseudo-psychological principles permeating American television would be your downfall.
I need to put what happened behind me.
I see you wish to play the role of victim once more for the benefit of our audience.
Audience? What audience?
He's mad that trusts in the tameness of a wolf and a whore's oath. My dear Alice, you know as well as I do that we are both under electronic surveillance, and that were I to attempt to harm you in any way, several muscular minions would no doubt burst forth through that door behind you and restrain me with what I believe is termed extreme prejudice.
That's ridiculous.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much, and doth avoid the question mightily. The real question, that is.
And that would be?
Oh, most pernicious woman, one may smile and still be a villain.
Oh, from learned mind to villain in less than a minute. Tell me, Richard, you do remember what you did to me, don't you?
Once more, my dear, you will have to be a little more specific.
Specific? Very well. 2 broken ribs, a fractured jaw, dislocated left arm, severe bruising, internal hemorrhaging, all inflicted on me by you in what the judge described as a brutal and vicious act of barbarism.
Yes, 'twas a torment to lay upon the damned.
Don't you feel any guilt for what you did?
Don't you?
You saying I was asking for it?
No. That, my dear, would imply sadistic tendencies on your part that I as your tutor, would have been honour bound not to indulge.
And what are you saying?
Quid pro quo, my dear, quid pro quo.
God, no, in cryptic in Latin.
Am I? Or are you merely being deliberately obtuse? Do you really want closure, as you put it? Or do you merely wish to perpetrate the lie?
What Lie.
The lie that you started that left me shorn of everything that I held dear. The lie that left me with no recourse but brutality and barbarism. The lie that you perpetrated against me.
Are you saying I imagined being beaten senseless by you?
Being beaten? No. Being abused? Yes.
I don't see the distinction.
Proving only that our time together in those hallowed halls of academia were utterly wasted. My dear Miss Prentice, your grasp of the intricacies of the English tongue is no greater now than it was when you first entered my chambers in search of enlightenment.
And perhaps, Professor, you should have expended more effort in tutoring me and less in trying to seduce me.
And there is the lie. My dear Miranda, the thought of sexual congress with a harridan such as you is and always was utterly abhorrent to me. To be honest, the idea of copulation in any of its multitudinous forms has always eluded me.
Really? Your wife seemed to find my allegations perfectly plausible. From what she told me, it was just having sex with her that seemed to elude you.
Yes, odd that.
But you wouldn't have sex with her?
Well, no, that she wished me to. I had always regarded ours as a marriage of true minds. Obviously, my one-time spouse had a somewhat different perspective. Shame, really. Like Portia, I always regarded her as stronger than her sex. Sadly for her, as for you, the act of fertilisation is, it seems, the answer to every question. Your raison d'etre, so to speak.
Well, you're above such things, eh, Professor?
Of course. I am an academic.
So is your wife?
Ex-wife.
But still a professor, unlike her ex-husband.
And yet you still insist on applying the honorific to him.
As I said, force of habit.
Or perhaps it's because you realise that his fall from grace was undeserved.
Your colleagues didn't seem to think so.
My colleagues, a cabal of intellectual microbes whose summers were made glorious by the winter of my discontent. I was about to ascend to chair of the university, you foolish child, over the corpses of their failed careers. Not one of them had published anything of any significance in years, and yet each one of them thought that they had a God-given right to the exalted position I had been selected for. I was Duncan to their Macbeth. They were perfectly happy for me to suffer the same metaphoric fate, and even more so that somebody else wielded the dagger. You were perfectly providential to them.
And what did the other chairs have to gain by throwing you to the wolves?
The council did not, as you put it, throw me to the wolves. They merely tried to resolve the situation with minimal collateral damage to the university's reputation.
They washed their hands of you. They were chomping at the bit to terminate your contract without even having a formal hearing.
And what, my dear, would a formal hearing have achieved beyond giving public voice to your ludicrous assertions and lending verisimilitude? Mud sticks, my dear Miss Prentice, mud sticks, and not always at those at whom it is thrown. But then again, that was the whole point, was it not? To leave the university with no option but to sacrifice me to the gods of public reputation, to sweep everything under the carpet, the scandal, my dreams, my life, my world, like so much dust.
Some might say that's no more than you deserved.
Heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned.
God, I wish you'd stop spouting Shakespeare at me.
Congreve, actually. A departure from me, I'll admit, but you'll see it as appropriate nonetheless.
Appropriate? How?
You loved me, and I scorned you, and thus transformed you into the fury that blighted my life.
I did not love you.
Would you prefer worshipped, then?
You're mad. You should be in a prison, you should be in a padded cell.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much, but we both know differently. Don't we, my dear?
Professor, don't. Please don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Prentice. I'll admit that I had no idea that your interest in me was anything other than intellectual, until such time when I wandered into my rooms one evening ready for a heated debate on the political subtext of Titus Andronicus, only to find you draped naked over my chaise longue, your modesty totally inadequately covered by a large print copy of the sonnets.
Bastard!
I imagine they consider that to be a justified reaction.
Utter bastard! I lay there for you, and you laughed. I prostrated myself before you because...
Because what?
Because you made me think you wanted me. You just stood there and laughed at me.
How?
How?
Yes, how, thou votary to fond desire? How did I make you think that I had the slightest inclination to indulge in coitus with you? When I did what? When my hand casually cupped your ample white buttock as you leant over to pick up some miscellaneous item that had strategically dropped by a convenient position beside my desk? Or was it when you caught the impish gleam in my eye, as my hand brushed your nipple as through the cheesecloth of your blouse as I lent you a volume of erotic poetry to peruse? Or, better still, was it when some other suitably anonymous parts of our anatomies collided in a ridiculously contrived manner, as overtly amorous as it was utterly fictional?
When you said I was special, you told me over and over again I was special in your rooms, in my tutorial.
Oh my dear God, I tell all my first year students that, in the vain hope that maybe one of them, just one of them, might turn out to be the literal definition of that word, instead of the mentally challenged pseudo-intellectuals, but the university system turns out by the gross.
And yet, of all your special students, I was the one selected to come back to your rooms for extra tuition.
Because, my dear Miss Prentice, of the 12 who were inflicted upon me at that time, you were the only one who showed sufficient intellectual promise to warrant such attention.
No, you...
My intention was to develop your mind, not inflame your libido.
No, you said I was from Miranda to your Prospero.
And no doubt told one of your fellow supplicants that they were Grumio to my Petruchio, or Beatrice to my Benedict, or Brutus to my Caesar. It is merely an affectation, not an expression of affection.
No, but Prospero loved Miranda.
Because he was her father. I was trying to portray a paternal figure, you idiotic wanton, with you as my intellectual offspring. Have you ever actually read The Tempest? At no point does the Duke encourage his daughter to disrobe to take part in an incestuous tryst any more than I encouraged you to play Lady Godiva on my furniture.
Miranda might have been an innocent, but I wasn't. I could read you like a proverbial book. Oh, you weren't obvious or heavy-handed about it. You were very subtle and understated, like a skillfully written play with all the subtext.
I'm sorry, my dear Miss Prentice, but sometimes there is no subtext. Sometimes there is merely text.
Then why didn't you just tell accounts about what I'd done? Quid pro quo, my dear Professor.
To
Quid
what
pro
end?
quo.
To what end? I realise now that you were utterly horrified by the whole incident, but having at first found it amusing myself, I considered the whole affair to be an embarrassment to us both that was best forgotten. You, however, clearly took a less enlightened attitude, shall we say.
Less enlightened? You bloody humiliated me.
You humiliated yourself, and when I refused to play Romeo to your Juliet, you concocted a fiction from the strands of your shattered dreams that created a noose for my career.
Said what you choose to call a fiction. I call truth, and I got in first, informally, of course.
At which point, any counter-accusations from me would have been utterly pointless. Neither of us could have produced any evidence to support our version of events. And even I have to admit that to the outside world, your version of things had the merit of appearing more credible, if less entertaining.
In other words, you knew they wouldn't believe you. And they did believe me.
And you received your pound of flesh. The offer of university chair was withdrawn, with regret of course, but nonetheless withdrawn. The goal towards which I had been working for a quarter of a century, torn from my grasp, defeat snatched from the jaws of victory. Foolishly, I had hoped that that might end the matter.
Do you really think I would be satisfied with simply denying you a promotion?
It was not a promotion, it was an honour. Recognition of a lifetime spent in pursuit of academic excellence.
A bloody trophy, then.
One that by all accepted criteria I had earned. I still can't imagine why that was insufficient recompense for your imagined slight.
Why? You laughed. And I blame you there. Naked, vulnerable, hopeful, afraid. You laughed. I have never felt more insulted, more degraded, more completely and utterly worthless in my entire life. And I would damned if I let you make anyone else feel like that ever again. Damned if I let you abuse your position like that ever again. So I made sure you no longer had a position to abuse.
Oh, very noble of you. Psychotic, but noble.
Isn't that a case of popcorn and the kettle black, given what you did to me?
You know, my dear Miss Prentice, for somebody who claims to have advanced knowledge of my psyche, you sure do seem very surprised by what you found once you get there. What did you imagine when you came to would happen when you came to my rooms that night? When you came to gloat over your vanquished foe? Did you seriously imagine that I would shake your hands like a gentleman and say, well played? Miss Prentice, do you remember my first words to you when you entered my chambers for the very first time?
Yes, I do. You said, welcome, young woman. Welcome to my world.
Welcome to my world. I used those words with absolute precision. Those rooms, that university were in every sense my world. Literally, philosophically, intellectually, emotionally, physically. A small world, one might say, and perhaps by no means a perfect one, but it was all that I required, and all that ever had or ever would matter to me. And you took those worlds away from me, and you took it away from me because I laughed at you instead of servicing you. And as that world evaporated around me, vanishing like the ghost of Hamlet's father into the ether, you stood there with a look of triumph on your face, as though you had won some great moral victory. It should have been obvious, my dear, even to the meanest of intelligences, what would happen, especially to one so insightful.
Maybe it was. Maybe I just wanted you to be the one who put the last nail in your own coffin.
At risk of your physiognomy, with the high regard that you have for your so-called charms? No, I don't think so. Admit it. You plainly failed to take into account the effect that your actions would have on me, and in doing so, you left yourself open to retribution of the most brutal nature.
Retribution? Is that what you call it? Is that how you justify what you did to me?
Is that not your justification for what you did to me? You know, Miss Prentice, this whole encounter is becoming the very definition of pointless. The whole conversation is becoming as circuitous as it is tedious. Perhaps you might like to leave. You are, after all, the only one of us currently at liberty to do so.
I won't. I can't.
And why not?
I want you to
Let me make something very simple for you, Miss Prentice. I do not care what you want. Your wishes are as relevant to me as my innocence was to you. I will not apologise for injuries that you have suffered at my hand, be they real or imagined, nor will I grant you absolutions for your sins against me, nor will I aid you in your pathetic quest for closure. So, do be a good little whore, and get thee to thy nunnery.
Oh. You know, for an intelligent man, you can be really stupid sometimes. You want it simple, Professor? Here it is. I came here today in good faith. They all said I was mad to even consider it after what you'd put me through, but I wanted to give you a chance.
To do what?
To make amends. To show me that you regretted what you'd done. Everything you'd done.
Is that all?
The quality of mercy may not be strange, but believe me, it's in bloody short supply around here. Especially for men like you, who beat the crap out of defenceless young women, and then refuse to show the slightest sign of contrition.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Now you, Professor, have a parole hearing coming up. Now the governor's waiting up in his office to hear what I have to say about our conversation. And what I tell him could be the difference between you getting out here in a week or in a year. I could be your worst enemy.
Or indeed my proverbial best friend.
Exactly. And all I ask is that you admit the truth.
About what, Miss Prentice?
About your pursuit of me, about how you really felt about me. The truth.
I see. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, and fashion a soliloquy that would adequately convey my feelings concerning your proposal, my dear. But I shall content myself with the briefest of phrases that, in spite of its brevity, will demonstrate beyond caveat the depth of my emotions. Fuck you, Alice. This above all else, to thine own self be true. Here endeth the lesson.
Brush up your Shakespeare.